All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here today. My name is Michelle Foley. You can see up on the screen there. I put my email address up there. Feel free to grab it if you're interested. I offer corporate relations for the Office of the Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning, and I also do professional development, specifically for 3 programs. So it's Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program, the Campus-Wide Honors Collegium, and the Entrepreneur Center. And I started in this role at UCI right before COVID. So you are literally my first time out with professional development workshops. So I'm very excited to be back in front of people in person again. I hope you're excited to be here too. Prior to joining OVPTL in 2019, I worked in career pathways for many years, and I was the internship coordinator there. So my knowledge comes directly from working with companies that are looking to hire young college students, whether internships, some career as well. And then I also did advising with students. So, hearing the student perspective and what's challenging to them and where do they feel that they need help. So hopefully the information that I share today is something that you find value in and will help you as you move forward. Okay, so skills to develop for college and beyond. Actually, before I start, how many of you have used a resume to apply for an internship, a job, or a program? Can you raise your hand? Okay, most. How was that process of writing the resume for you? Anybody want to share?
It wasn't too hard.
It wasn't too hard. Okay.
I just kind of keep adjusting or adding different things to my resume that I already have, so it wasn't too time consuming.
Okay. What kinds of things?
Just updates with new opportunities that I have. I'll just add it onto my resume and take the old ones out that I don't think are relevant to the job I'm applying to.
Okay. I might leave. No. You're already there. No. That's a great point. Yeah. I mean, I wish everybody said something like that. Anyone else? What was your resume writing experience like? Okay. So hopefully this information will make it even better. If you already are finding it easy and know what to do, hopefully this will make it even better. And if you're unsure or somewhere in between there, we're going to get you going on the right path. So skills to develop for college and beyond. We're looking at what are employers looking for from you, regardless of your major, regardless of your career path, whether you're going to graduate school, whether you're going directly to industry, regardless of what industry you're going into, what are they looking for from a college student, right? So questions we're going to talk about today or answer: what does it mean to be career ready? How do you know when you're career ready? And do you have to start now, or can you wait until you're closer to graduation to start working on this? And if you have other questions that come up as we're talking, feel free to put them out there. I don't want to be the only one in the room talking. So when we think about being career ready, what we're really talking about is transferable skills. So what are transferable skills? If you've never heard the term before, break it down. What is it? What do you think it means? Everybody's going to be shy today. Okay, I'll give you another minute or two to warm up. So I broke it down, right? And so I split it up into a few different words, right? So we're looking at transferring. So what are you doing when you're transferring something? What happens when you make a transfer right here?
It's kind of when you're in the process of sending one thing to another, your skills, you're kind of, I don't know how to explain that.
That's good.
The word transfer.
I think you did. You're sending it from one place to another. You're moving it from one place to another. That's a transfer of something. So to convey or remove from one place to another. Spot on. What does it mean to be able? Anyone?
Capable.
Capable? Mm-hmm. Pretty much, yeah. You have the necessary power, skill, resources, qualifications. You're qualified, right? You're able. And then lastly, skills. So what's a skill? It's an ability you have, right? And you've acquired that ability through knowledge or practice. Sometimes you just know, right? But it's an ability you have. So when you put it together, I say transferable skills are abilities developed from experiences in the past that when conveyed well demonstrate your qualifications, right? So when we put it into the context of your future career or your application process to something, this is a good definition for transferable skills. Yeah? So when you hear transferable skills, what are some of the words that come up for you? What are some transferable skills that are out there? Communication.
Time management.
Time management. Leadership.
Speaking another language.
Okay. Language. What else? Teamwork. Organizing. Okay. What about you? What's a skill, a transferable skill? Okay. Presenting. Conflict management. Problem solving. Critical thinking. And the list goes on, right? There's a lot of them out there. And you get into this word soup, right? And it can start to get overwhelming. And so going back to that resume question, how do you know what you're putting on your resume? When you start looking at everything that you've done, right? Your jobs, your internships, your extracurricular activities, your campus leadership experiences from high school or college, depending on what year you are in school, right? You get a lot of words that might come up that you could use to describe all of the skills that are in your basket. And it could get overwhelming. So how do you choose which ones to focus on? Which ones to highlight as you walk through this process of college, right? University experiences, developing your skills, and talking to potential future employees? How do you know which ones to develop? Which ones to focus on? So that's where career readiness comes in, and that transferable idea, right? So the good news is there is an organization out there that has shrunk that list for you. Does it mean it's the only skills you're ever going to work on? No, but it gives you a good place to start to begin to develop your vocabulary around it, to learn to start to think about a set of words in very different ways, right? And so we call these career readiness competencies, right? And so on the bottom right, you can see the National Association of Colleges and Employers logo there. They are a fairly large organization. They have over 10,000 members, and the members are HR recruiters and university career services people, mostly. There are some smattering of people like me that are in there too. I'm working on professional development on a university campus, not necessarily in a career center anymore, but I'm still interested in what's happening. What are the current trends in the industry? What are people talking about? What are challenges students are facing so that I can stay up to date and continue to be a good resource? So this fabulous association put together a committee of all of their HR members to develop a short list of competencies that they would like all college students to focus on, regardless of major, degree, or outcome. So again, whether you're going to graduate school, whether you're, and going to be a faculty member later on in life, or if you're going to go into industry, or maybe you don't know yet, and that's okay. These skills are what you can focus on and build on and start gathering examples of, and you will be able to have meaningful conversations with potential employers in the future about your skill set. So we'll dive deeper into each of these, but are there any first impressions from this list?
Seems pretty standard.
It's pretty standard. You've heard it before.
Well, it just seems standard.
And I don't mean that in a bad way that you've heard it before. It's okay. If you have, I think that's great. Right. Okay, so some standard stuff on there. Things you can grab onto. You understand what they are and feel like, okay, this makes sense. Good. So we can start going a little bit deeper into each of these competencies and looking at some sample behaviors. And hopefully you can start thinking about where you've been and where you're going to go from here, right? So career and self-development is actually a very important part of your competency kit. Basically, this means you have taken an active role in figuring out what you want to do. So maybe you did that before you got to UCI, or now that you're here, you're figuring that out now, and either way is fine. But you're engaging in activities that are helping you develop your professional development skills. It's helping you make connections with where you see yourself in the future, both those mental and emotional connections as well as those physical connections. You're meeting people who are potentially in your future, who are in your career field that you're potentially going into in the future, right? And you can see there the sample behaviors. You're showing an awareness of your own strengths. You're developing plans to meet your goals. You're assuming duties or positions that are going to help you progress, right? And so being enrolled in a program like this is certainly part of your career and self-development. And career and self-development is something that you will hopefully continue to engage in forever. It never really ends, right? Because once you graduate and you get into your entry-level position, you're going to want to grow from there. Maybe it's moving into management. Maybe it's a higher scientific role. Maybe it's a medical specialization, right? You want to keep growing, right? You've got the base. Now I'm here. Okay, what's next? Career and self-development is part of that process, and hopefully it's going to be a lifelong learning process for you. But you can see what is there in samples of that. Communications. There's so many aspects of communication, right? So what are some of the communication elements you can think of?
She had said like language.
Language, different language abilities, absolutely. Anyone else?
Having like proper etiquette, like when it comes to like emailing people or the manner in which you're able to talk to like your team member, or like you're able to forward a message.
Okay. So understanding email etiquette, perhaps a little bit of the audience as well, right? Are you emailing a peer-to-peer level colleague, or are you emailing the president of the company, right? And that might change how you write that email.
Being like clear and concise in your words, and also like listening to others.
So being clear and concise and listening to others, absolutely.
Like being able to communicate effectively with like people on different levels of understanding of the topic you're discussing.
Sure, absolutely. So everybody hear that one? Being able to communicate effectively with different levels of understanding, right? Kind of along those lines, you should all know, right? The UROP Symposium is coming up. The Undergraduate Research Symposium is coming up at the end of May. And one of the things we did just this year for the first time was the Project Pitch Challenge, which really falls into the development of communication skills. As you're going through undergraduate research with these faculty, they are probably most likely talking to you and helping you understand how you talk about your research with other academics. The challenge of the pitch is to talk about your research with anybody. So you've got to figure out how to talk about some very detailed, very scientific, whether that's social scientific or, STEM scientific, I guess would be a way to say it. Talking about this very deep, intense information to someone who knows nothing about it potentially, right? And how do you make that relatable? And that was the challenge in the pitch. And I'm excited for you guys to see some of the videos that are going to come out and actually are already posted on Engagement Hub. But communication, certainly, different levels. There's body language. Going back to that email comment, when do you write an email versus send a text versus walk into someone's office and talk to them or pick up the phone, right? How are you assessing that? So communication is a lot of big things. And you can see the sample behaviors that they put on the slide. By the way, you will have access to the slides. Okay. Critical thinking. How are you developing critical thinking? So let's identify and respond to needs based upon an understanding of situation, context, and logical analysis of relevant information. That's a lot of words. You're developing critical thinking just by transitioning to a university, right? Everybody's a first year, yeah? Whether you're a transfer or a first year from high school. So just walking into this environment, you're already employing a lot of critical thinking skills. You're many, for the first time, having to work through situations you're encountering on your own, which is taking that critical thinking. You possibly have to manage a budget, which you might not have had to have done before. You've got to figure out buying your own groceries. Perhaps you're learning to cook for the first time, do your own laundry for the first time, right? So there may be some people in that situation and they're developing critical thinking skills. We think of them as just everyday needs, right? Or these are things that I just have to learn to live. But you're employing critical thinking there. That's kind of the good news about these skills is they're things that you are doing every day and you just haven't given a name to them before. And so now they all have a name and you can start to identify when you're using them and how you're building them. Equity and inclusion. So demonstrate the awareness, attitude, knowledge, and skills required to equitably engage and include people from different local and global cultures, and engage in anti-racist practices that actively challenge the systems, structures, and policies of racism. So again, being on a college campus, I would expect that you're encountering some of these situations. You're encountering people of different cultures and different ages, different ethnicities, different religions, and learning how to navigate that, how to be respectful, hopefully speaking up if you're hearing or seeing things that don't match your values, right? This is an important one all over the world for us and something that hopefully you can be active in. But again, you can see some of the sample behaviors there. Advocate for inclusion, equitable practices, justice, and empowerment for historically marginalized communities. Keep an open mind to diverse ideas and new ways of thinking. Demonstrate flexibility by adapting to diverse environments. So, a few examples there. So professionalism, we'll get through them all. You know, work environments are going to be different everywhere you go, and being able to adapt to that, understand and demonstrate good work habits, good work ethic, an interest in the larger community of your organization beyond your individual role. So how many of you have a job now? Maybe you work on campus somewhere. Okay. Think about that. If you're a cashier at Zongo, you're a barista in Starbucks, maybe you're making sandwiches at Subway. Perhaps you're working in an office, the reception, when people walk in the front door. You know, and think about that professionalism that you're bringing in there. In my years of talking to students, I'm actually surprised by the number of students who really dismiss, like, oh, I'm just a cashier at Target. Like, it's no big deal. No, it really is a big deal. There's a lot that you're learning there, right? You're learning to take direction from someone in a position higher than your own. You're learning to interact with people. You're managing money, right? You've got to take money and make change and make sure that that's accurate, because if your drawer is short on a consistent basis, you're probably not going to have that job for very long. Understanding how to conduct different types of transactions, answering questions, dealing with difficult customers, dealing with happy customers, right? There's a lot going on there, and bringing professionalism into that type of role is just as important as bringing it into your first career outside of college or your internship while you're in college, right? Always demonstrating that, because these people who are your supervisors now in these casual part-time jobs will be references for you when you start entering into that career world, and you want them to be able to say very true and positive things about you. So that professionalism is important. Teamwork. Where are you using teamwork? How do you use teamwork on a college campus?
You work with your peers and collaborate with them.
In the class, like classroom projects, so working with peers, collaborating with them. How many of you are in a club? Okay. And if you're going to those campus meetings, if your group is doing any kind of volunteer, right, you're working with a team of people to achieve a goal. That's what teamwork is about. So teamwork isn't limited to the workplace, and you can identify traits that you're building towards teamwork in many aspects of your experiences that you're having on campus. Technology. This seems straightforward, right? This seems almost silly sometimes. Like, of course, technology is a skill we all have to have. Everything is based on technology. But understanding technology, understanding when is the right platform to use for whatever you need, we can go back to communication as an example. There are a lot of different technological ways to communicate with people. We've got online, different chat mediums. So as a staff person on campus, I can use Google Chat, I can use Teams, I can use Slack. Of course, there's email, there's simple text, right? There's like 5 different things. And so as I'm talking to people and joining in and out of groups, because in my role, I'm consulting with a bunch of different departments, right? I don't have one department that I'm always with this team of people. I'm in and out all the time. And so I have multiple ways that I communicate depending on the team that I'm working on. And so, that's the complexity of technology. There are many ways to achieve a goal, and you might have to be familiar with a lot of those ways to achieve your job, to complete your job. So understanding and leveraging technologies ethically to enhance efficiencies, complete tasks, and accomplish goals. That's really important in the research world as well, right? Making sure that you're appropriately using the data that you are either collecting or have access to, that it's safe, that your practices are following a code of ethics that's usually applied by the grant holder, whoever's giving the money to the research, that kind of thing. So everybody is sitting with someone, and if you're sitting in an individual chair, you might want to, you could maybe turn around to the tables behind you. So you have a handout that you were given when you first walked in. And so now I want you to start thinking about ways that you have either used and developed some of these skills or how you anticipate building them. So if you've had a job or an internship, or you currently have one, you could use those examples. If you don't fall into one of those 2 categories, job or internship, think about clubs that you've been a part of, think about past research projects that you've been a part of, and how you have developed some of these competencies. I think it's important to talk to people about it because that is helping you develop some competencies, actually, in the process. But we get kind of stuck in how we describe what we do, right? So when I talk to people about my job, I have my pitch, right? And this is the language that I always use to describe my job. And it's through questioning that I might start to talk about it differently. What is their interest in what I'm doing? And that's going to change how I'm going to respond. And that gives a different perspective. So that's why I think it's important talking to the people around you, get in groups of 2, 3, maybe 4, and just talk about what you've done and what skills you think might be related to that, And as you're listening to others talk, ask questions, get some clarification, encourage them to think critically about what they're doing or what they have done, right, and how it helped them build, and help them learn to communicate differently. Okay? So we'll give about 15 minutes for that. Feel free to wave me down, call me over if you want me to come over. And then I'd like to do some sharing at the end. All right, everybody. I want to have a few minutes to share. I also want to keep you on time, so we'll stay to the 50-minute mark. So I've heard a lot of great conversation. I've talked to a lot of you and heard some interesting things. Does anybody want to share anything they came up with? Is there anything that came out of your conversations that gave you a new way to think about something you've experienced in the past? Mm-hmm.
I had forgotten like some of the stuff that I did with one of the clubs that I was in, and like I just like talking about it reminded me that I was part of like something, and I was like, oh, like I did that too.
Yeah. So I don't know if you could hear. So she had forgotten about some things she had done with a club in the past, and so through the conversation, she remembered that, oh, that's right, I've done this before, and it's another example of how she's. Which skill did you relate it to?
I related it to what was it was like teamwork, because I like worked with the other officers of the club to like plan a ceremony.
Okay. So it was teamwork, working with a group of people to plan a ceremony, right? And so that's the benefit of having the conversation about it. You know, it's great. We are all independent workers and we can get things done on our own. But when you have the opportunity, having that conversation can really trigger some things differently for you. Anyone else? Something you've forgotten, or again, just a different way, a shift in how you think about that role or that job that you had or that program that you ran or participated in. Okay. So my challenge to all of you is to keep these competencies fresh in your mind. Put them on a bulletin board. Make a note, right, on your calendar. So 8 weeks or 8 days or 8 hours in the future, put in each of the competencies and put it on a repeat so that you remind yourself, like, what did you do to develop teamwork today, right? And then next week it's, what did you do to develop your communication skills today? And if you put it on a loop on your phone or on whatever calendar you're using, you're going to keep all of these competencies fresh in your mind, right? And the point of that is for you to start jotting those things down. So as you go about writing your resume in the future, right? Sometimes there's long gaps, a year, maybe 2 years from when you use a resume to when you have to update it again. It depends on what you're doing, what kind of job you're stable in. For a lot of college students, there's a lot of time between the use of resumes. So consistently keeping these things in mind, how I'm building skills, and jotting those ideas down will make it a lot easier when the need comes up again. Any questions, thoughts about career competencies or some other aspect of job search that I can answer for you?
I have a question actually, Michelle.
Yeah.
So the National Association of Colleges and Employers,
Uh-huh.
is that a good resource, you think, for them to constantly check to see what's updated and is there new information regarding this on there usually?
It doesn't get NACE. This is the second version of their career competencies that I've seen them publish in probably 8 years. So it doesn't get updated frequently. What does come up are resources. So other universities are putting out their resources. Like I saw I think it was University of Florida at Tampa has a career competencies journal, which I thought was an interesting idea. And so this is probably something they're providing to their students to help their students document all of these things. So instead of you having to come up with some way to do it on your own, right? So there's some of that information on there. And there's information about all parts of job search on NACEweb. So yeah, if you have time, go poke around, look at the topics that are of interest to you, and find the resources that are there. Thanks, Gregoria. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay. Thank you for coming today. Hopefully I'll get to see you again in the future. Probably not before summer, so I hope you all have a wonderful summer break. Only a few weeks away.
Thank you.